That massive budget bill the president calls the big beautiful bill is now in the hands of senators. The president touting that it would make his 2017 tax cuts permanent while cutting other taxes and boosting spending for border security and defense. But that bill, as John was saying, faces tough criticism. So for more now on this, Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman from Indiana and Democratic Congresswoman Julie Johnson from Texas join me to break this all down. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, both of you. Congressman Stutzman, let's start with you. As Senate Republicans work on potentially changing things in this bill, one thing that you've said is that the bill is the start of America's return to fiscal sanity, but the Congressional Budget Office projects this bill would create more debt, add to the national debt, about $3 trillion. Why is there that pushback from the GOP?
Well, because what it does is it cuts taxes for middle class working families across this country. Not only does it keep, the Trump tax cuts in place without letting those rates go up at the end of this year, it also does no tax on tips. I come from a family business and we were in the restaurant business. And I'll tell you what, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Those are two very important pieces that I think will benefit the American people greatly. When you work those extra hours and you don't have to pay taxes at the end of the day, that's a nice boost, and you feel good going home that you're going to be able to support your family. It's going to maybe put a couple of extra $100 in your pocket that you're going to be able to, pay those bills that you need to do. So not only does it do those no taxes on, middle class families, but also you can discount your interest rate on your automobile. There's a lot of pieces in here that are going to put more money in the working families' pockets rather than putting it in Washington's.
And Congresswoman Johnson, border security is a top issue there in Texas. The independent CBO says the government already spends nearly $34 billion on immigration and border enforcement agencies. Does the government need to spend more to secure the border?
I don't believe we do. What we need to do is spend more to have effective processing, to be able to have people get a timely application so that people aren't waiting 5 years for an appointment, stuff like that. But the wall is just a ridiculous spend of money. And I want to go back to the tax cuts for a moment. They're completely irresponsible. The point is, yeah, so no tax on tips, that's all fine and well, but that's a temporary tax cut. They're not making those permanent. They're only making permanent the tax cuts for the very wealthy. And the other problem is they're cutting all these benefits. They're cutting Medicaid. They're cutting the ACA tax credits. They're cutting health care. So you might earn a couple extra $100 on some overtime money, but you're going to be in debt thousands of dollars on your health care. So it really doesn't help the American family at all.
And real quick, Congresswoman Johnson, I do want to go back to border security, because back in March, you introduced a bill to strengthen border enforcement, saying that you needed more agents on the ground there in Texas. Would this bill not help accomplish that?
I'm definitely for border security. I mean, we all want a safe and secure border. And I think agents and personnel and that sort of thing is where we should be spending our money. The problem is they're spending $45 billion on a physical wall that geographically is very difficult and challenging to do with the terrain of our southern border. It's a waste of money. And, for example, there's some website out there that lets people track how quickly they can get the wall in over 6 seconds. It doesn't do anything to deter the border at all, but we do need to invest in personnel, and I fully support that.
And Congressman Stutzman, to bring you back in, cuts to Medicaid, that is an issue that's concerning for so many Americans, as Congresswoman Johnson just pointed out. What's your response to them?
Well, yeah, if you're here illegally, you'll be cut out of Medicaid. If you're here and you're not, if you're an able-bodied individual and you can get a job, you'll be cut off of Medicaid. So those are the two pieces that Democrats continue to say are they don't reference that point. They just say that Americans are going to be cut off of Medicaid. That's just simply not the case. What we do need to do is address the cost of healthcare. That's what's driving our debt and deficits through the roof. And Obamacare was supposed to be the fix to that, and it hasn't done that. People are working harder today, making less, and they're being forced onto Medicaid. I represent people here in Northeast Indiana that they are doing everything they can to make ends meet. And when, of course, the health insurance bill comes, it's through the roof. And so they're forced into Medicaid. So I just disagree. I think that in the long run, we have to address the cost of health care, but we're also going to be sure that those who don't deserve Medicaid aren't going to have an opportunity to have it.
And Congressman Stutzman, as far as the bill being with senators right now and how slim of a margin it is that it passed through the House, what about changes that the Senate could make that would keep you on board? Are there some changes that would make you not on board for the bill? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of provisions in there. The SALT provisions have been increased, the state and local tax deduction. That's something that I think doesn't need to be as high as it is because it rewards those states that are irresponsible in their budgets. States like New York and California, Illinois, they continue to be high tax states. People are leaving those states. Again, I think that's what's showing, states like Texas, where we're seeing people that are migrating there because taxes are lower. People are migrating to Tennessee and Florida and even Indiana. People from Chicago are moving across the border into Indiana because we're a low cost state. Cost of living is much more affordable in Indiana than it is in Illinois. So I think that that's one provision. Also, if they increase the cuts to other additional spending provisions, I'd be fine with that. Enacting the Doge cuts. We have $36 trillion of debt. $1 trillion every year goes to just debt service. We can't raise taxes on the American people because we would throw this economy into a recession. And so that's one of the things that Democrats continue to talk about. They want everything to be paid for that the government has promised, but their answer to paying for all that is just raising taxes. And that's just not feasible. We need a growing economy. That's what's going to help the American people more than anything.
Congresswoman Johnson, what's your response to that? And what do you think about the Senate and whether they will scale back on some aspects of this bill?
Well, I think he's completely disingenuous in his assessment of what Medicaid does. They're cutting it for all people. There's 1.8 million people in his own state on Medicaid. And this isn't just for illegal aliens. This is some very convenient talking points. There's a reason why every healthcare organization and business organization has been marching through the Capitol to say how devastating this bill is. And the other thing is, I find it just curious that these Republicans they love to talk on the one hand, oh, deficit, deficit, deficit. But on the other hand, they're adding $4 trillion to the deficit, really for tax breaks for the most wealthy people in this country. It's going to benefit less than 0.5%. So that's just hollowness. It's really not true legislating that benefits the American people. And the other thing is, to respond to his argument, well, people go get a job and work. Well, then raise the minimum wage. It's $7.25. If you're really concerned about wages in this case, in this country, then let's have a wage that people can actually live on, pay their bills, afford health insurance, and not have to be on Medicaid. Most people I know don't want to be on Medicaid, but they're hardworking folks but what, $7.25 an hour, that doesn't get you very far.
Congressman Sussman, I know you're chomping at the bit to jump back in, but I want to ask you that because the Congressional Budget Office says that this bill would raise the budget and would cost so much more. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, you can't hire anybody at 725. Minimum wage is irrelevant because the inflationary costs under President Biden have driven their wages up. I mean, you have to hire people at $15 an hour in Northeast Indiana, and I'm sure it's much higher than that in states like California and New York. So, I mean, the minimum wage is irrelevant at this point. People are working harder. They are trying to make ends meet. It's not necessarily that wages haven't gone up because they have. It's the cost of everything else that's gone up. Inflation has been driving the American people into greater debt. Credit card debt is at all-time highs. This has happened over the past 4 years under the Biden administration, also because of the consequences of COVID are also part of that as well. And so we need a growing economy rather than more government spending, more government involvement, more government bureaucracy. We need to cut those bureaucracies and rather than letting them continue to make life more difficult. My goal is to save small businesses in America and allow them to be able to pay. I love doing a pay increase, but when you can't pay all the bills, the utility costs are up, insurance costs are up, everything. Life of just the cost of life is higher. So that's all due to the last 4 years. I believe that the government is going to do the right thing by growing the economy, focusing on putting more money in people's pockets, and then we're going to have to grow our way out and also start cutting spending and reforming healthcare programs.
Before I let you both go, I do want to get your reactions to the president deploying the National Guard to Los Angeles as those protests there over ICE operations escalates. Congressman Sussman, let's start with you, and especially hearing from House Speaker Mike Johnson saying that he doesn't think deploying active duty Marines is heavy-handed. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, this is an attack on a government agency. And so when you're seeing people that are going into these ICE facilities and trying to break in or protesting and causing harm to our law enforcement when they are a danger to our communities, This is a real problem. These aren't just people that are standing outside peacefully protesting. They're taking the law into their own hands, and that's just not going to be acceptable. This has happened in New Jersey, where other members of the Democrat Party actually helped try to break into an ICE facility. We're continuing to see this violence, and I don't think that we as Americans should put up with it. You know, whether it's in California or whether it's in Indiana, I don't care. The president needs to keep Americans safe. They can peacefully protest, but as soon as they start becoming violent, that's when it has to stop.
And Congresswoman Johnson, what's your response to that? Because he's mentioning violence, but Governor Gavin Newsom has said that, you know, deploying the National Guard would only escalate things.
Right. It's outrageous. And these Republicans have lost their mind when they now advocate deploying the United States military against American citizens on American soil. It is absolutely outrageous. You know, the state of California has plenty of law enforcement. They have sheriff's departments. The city of Los Angeles has excellent police departments. They have plenty of local law enforcement that can deal with whatever disruptions are necessary. And deploying the United States military against American citizens is a bridge that we have not seen in this country. The National Guard has not been deployed in this country against American people since the 60s, and the active United States military has never happened. And so this is outrageous. It's and the fact that Republicans are just sitting here going in line, it just shows that they have abdicated all their values against what they stand for in terms of the various levels of government and the role of our United States military.
So